Revenge films.
My name is Michelle. I live with my husband Michael and our baby daughter Kelly. We were a happy family of 3 except for my mother-in-law who lived nearby in a separate house and went around spreading awful rumors to our neighbors. It was such a pain, I couldn't even stand it. For example, she would say things like, "It seems that my daughter-in-law isn't very good at cooking, and I'm just so worried now that I have a grandchild, whether she's going to be able to eat any proper meals. And apparently she doesn't like to clean up their room. It's a disaster. So if the child develops allergies, I'm so worried about her health. And the way that she hangs up the laundry is it's so messy. But if I say something, she's only gonna get angry and take it out on me, right?" That was only scratching the surface, and she was telling all her friends as well as all of the neighbors at any of the lessons she was going to around the neighborhood, making up stories about my incompetence and temper. She was saying it like I was a wife that didn't do any of the chores around the house and didn't take care of my newborn daughter. Because of that, I was getting glared at by neighbors everywhere I went. And one day, a group of women from my mother-in-law's generation came up to my doorstep and told me that they would teach me how to do chores properly. It was a huge pain, and it isolated me in the neighborhood as well. For the record, I definitely did all of the chores around the house, and I was extremely careful with my daughter, especially when it came to cooking. I was confident because I even had a certification to teach cooking, and my husband always said that my cooking was delicious and seemed to enjoy the meals I made. I don't mean to brag, but even from a nutrition perspective, I know that I calculate the nutrition of every meal more than the average housewife, without ever using a processed ingredients. And all of my baby food for my daughter is homemade and stored in a freezer for safety. It's not like I'm completely perfect at cleaning, but because Michael was always good at doing the chores around the house, I wouldn't have to say anything, and he would already have the laundry hanging outside, or he would proactively help me with cleaning around the house. He really was the most supportive husband and father. He said that he wanted the floors to be clean for when the baby starts to crawl around, so he was always cleaning our house, and thanks to him, it was always spotless. And my mother-in-law, who was always barging into our house unannounced, should know better than anybody, but I guess she just had to tear me down to feel better about herself. That's why whenever our neighbors came over to my house in regards to the rumors they heard, this is what I said. "It seems that my mother-in-law gets uncomfortable if it's not exactly the way she does it. Even the arrangement of spices in my kitchen, if it's not exactly the way she likes it, then she gets upset. I can never seem to please her standards. And so I try to reply to make it seem like my mother-in-law is the one in the wrong. Even when she wanted to rearrange the spices, she said, 'Why is it placed here like this? It's so difficult to use. Oh, but it's because you, Michelle. I guess there's nothing I can do.' And she says it in this way that it's extremely disappointed, and it was obvious that she was trying to harass me. But it's not like my mother-in-law was cooking at our house in the first place, and she doesn't even live with us. So sometimes I try to tell her that as long as I can use it, then there shouldn't be any problems. It wasn't her house or kitchen at all." Of course, my husband had heard me tell him these things multiple times, and he tried to talk to his mother about it on multiple occasions.
Quit saying things like Michelle's cooking isn't delicious, especially when everything that she makes is way better than anything you've ever cooked!
And he wasn't just saying that. He just told me that his mother's cooking wasn't actually that good at all. He said that all of her cooking was oversalted and impossible to eat, but whenever I cook, I really try to preserve the natural flavors. And it's not tasteless, but it also is not too salty. And I try to really manage the balance of flavors with every meal as well. Also, being mindful of the nutritional value, and thankfully my husband really likes those flavors. Our baby does as well, and loved the food that I gave her. Previously, when my mother-in-law said that my cooking was terrible and said she couldn't let her granddaughter eat such tasteless things, she made some kind of baby food that was extremely thick and colorful. I felt like I had no choice but to feed it to Kelly, but as soon as she put it in her mouth, she started spitting it out and crying. And I could imagine that only irritated my mother-in-law more, especially after she was told by her own son that my cooking was better than hers. That's why I didn't like my mother-in-law. But I wanted to be cordial, and I would always be polite to her and greet her. But after that, I would just give short answers and ignore her. Then one year, we went to Michael's family's house for a public holiday. When I was in the kitchen, and his mom said this to me, "You hate me, don't you, Michelle? You want me to die, don't you?" She said that with a grin on her face, and she asked me over and over again, Why would she say that with a grin on her face? I thought as I listened in silence, but because my mother-in-law was always saying nonsense like this in a roundabout way, I decided not to reply and I tried to avoid the question. However, after she kept repeating the question with a number of times, I saw something poking out of her jacket pocket. When I looked closely, I could see that it was a voice recorder. It was the same as the one my husband used for work, but in a different color, so I was able to identify what kind of device it was immediately. When I saw that, I knew that she was trying to record me and then use it against me to spread false rumors about me. I was extremely irritated, but after that, for some reason, I started to laugh. And that's why the next time she asked me, I grabbed my mother-in-law and I pulled out the voice recorder from her jacket pocket. Well, that's terrible. Even though I've been considering living with you, and in order to give back my gratitude to you all these years that you've been so good to me, I will be sure to look after you at every moment until your last. You're getting a bit older now, so don't you think it's better for you to move soon? And we can live together as a happy family. As I said that, I waved the voice recorder in her face. When my mother-in-law realized that I had noticed the voice recorder, she turned pale. This isn't what it looks like! What? What do you mean? Aren't you trying to make me say something and then record it and then use it against me negatively? No, you're wrong! As she said that, my mother-in-law ran away from me. As I was saying it, I started to really enjoy myself and naturally, I started to smile. I can only imagine that that was the most terrifying face for her to see. But if she was going to try to record me again in an inconvenient time, I decided to take control and chase after her to make sure she never does it again. Why are you avoiding me? Do you hate me that much? I kept the voice recorder in plain view as I chased her with a smile on my face. As we were leaving, I pulled out the voice recorder again and I handed it to my mother-in-law, telling her that she forgot something. My mother-in-law was flustered as she thanked me and fell silent. She stood there pale. I'm sure my mother-in-law was trying to use the voice recorder to bring me down in some way that she could, but instead, she was the one being cornered about it. And it was so careless of her. She was pathetic. When we got home that night, I told Michael about how his mother had been carrying the voice recorder and what happened in the kitchen with her. When he heard this, he was furious. He barged back into his parents' house, yelling at his mother that he was trying to use things to bring people down is not what family does to each other. He then banned her from coming anywhere near our house. When his father heard about that, he suddenly became furious.
What on earth were you planning on doing after recording our daughter-in-law, huh? Why don't you explain yourself?
Nothing.
Nothing? Well then, why don't you tell us why you were holding a voice recorder? And I heard that you were purposely trying to get Michelle to say something that would put her at a disadvantage!
I'm sorry! Michael told me that she got down on her knees and was apologizing to him and his father. First of all, I really wanted to ask why she would do something like that in the first place, but apparently my mother-in-law was bored lately and she was surfing the internet. And then, that was when she read a story about a mother who had been harassed by her daughter-in-law and used a voice recorder and was able to take the daughter-in-law to court. Apparently, that gave her the idea, so she went out of her way to go and purchase a voice recorder and tried to get me to say something that would make me look bad. And then she was going to try to show it to Michael and his father and tell them that I was a bad person, so that Michael would divorce me and that she would be able to take her son and her grandchild back. This was all part of her plan to isolate me from everybody and destroy my life. But in the end, Michael's father's anger didn't simmer, and both he and Michael said that they had no intention of letting her see her grandchild anytime soon. Anytime my father-in-law wants to see his grandchild, he is allowed to our home. And apparently, he uses a voice recorder to record his time with Kelly and only lets his wife listen to that. I really am grateful to my husband and father for being so supportive. After that, she no longer barged into our house anymore, and I'm sure she's going to stop spreading such awful rumors about me as well. If she hates me that much, then she could have said that to my face from the very beginning, and I would have at least been able to fight face to face. It could have been settled down between the two of us instead of spreading across the entire neighborhood, but she did this to herself. For the record, I wasn't trying to get revenge on her, but as they say, an eye for an eye. When I told the neighbors about when my mother-in-law tried to use a voice recorder to get me to say such misleading information, it spread like wildfire through the gossiping housewives in the neighborhood. Thanks to that, my mother-in-law's reputation only went down, and on the other hand, my reputation was recovered, and people realized that she was lying all these years about my abilities as a wife and mother. I'm sure now in the neighborhood, she would probably be the one receiving the end of all the glares. She is also still banned from entering our house, and her husband hasn't forgiven her yet. I'm sure she's going to be spending the foreseeable future paying for everything she did to me and tried to do to me.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.